Andrea. My name is Eliana Marcus, and I'm 9 years old. I'm in fourth grade. I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and my favorite subjects in school are art and math. After you can introduce yourself, and after you present, we will ask you a few questions. Thank you.
That sounds terrific. Thank you so much, Eliana. I really appreciate the introduction. And it is wonderful to be here with everyone who is interested in innovation and invention and the future and doing things differently, because it's time to get away from the same old and do things differently. And my name is Andrea Pass. I am a publicist. I'm the owner of Andrea Pass Public Relations, and I help people spread the word. I get you press coverage to grow your brand so that people can learn about you and what you do. And so if it's all right with you, Eliana, will I be able to share my screen?
Yes, you can.
Very good. All righty. Well, I am going to share my screen, and we're going to talk a little bit about public relations and really what it is, because, unfortunately, everyone knows about advertising, but they don't know about other aspects of marketing. And when you're an inventor, you need to think of other things, other ways to spread the word so people will support your invention and buy that potential invention in the future. So let's talk a little bit about how we all get our content. So for instance, everyone who is watching today, I'm sure, has already watched TV or read a newspaper or magazine or read a blog article or listened to a podcast or absorbed some kind of a content. And that is really the basis of public relations. Your invention and your story, just like Connor told us, his backstory and how he first got into Back to the Future to create his Lego product. Everyone has a story and everyone wants to hear that story. And the media is all about telling that story in a different kind of way. It's one thing when you're sitting and you're hanging with your friends or you're talking to other people who invent, but what about the press and reaching people who could put some dollars and cents behind your invention to really get it to happen? So public relations, and today what I'm talking about is all about that kind of a message. So are you ready? That's always the first question an inventor asks me. No matter what your age, are you ready for public relations? Well, not so fast. Let's talk a little bit. Do you have a patent or provisional patent? Don't start telling everyone about your invention unless you are protected, because there's someone out there that wants to steal your idea. And if you haven't protected yourself, then the invention is ripe for the stealing. So please, once you get serious and you're ready to take your invention to the next step, go on to uspto.gov. That's the United States Patent and Trademark Office, uspto.gov. Research. You can get a provisional patent for about $120. It's really inexpensive. It's a good way to start protecting yourself before you talk to all these lawyers who will want to take tens of thousands of dollars from you to help you get a patent that would take years and years. And by the time you get around to getting the patent, someone else had the same idea you did. So you are not ready for public relations, press outreach until you have a provisional patent or a patent. And I'm sure that through your groups, you've learned a little bit about that. And unfortunately, we all have to protect ourselves. So please make sure you do that. And then when you have that invention, have a website. It could be a basic website, but it has to have information about your invention and where it could be purchased. Is it available at retail? Is it available on Amazon? Is it available on your site? You have to have a way to sell it, because how can anyone buy it? Have you set up your social media pages? So when we talk about press coverage, social media is quick. It gets the message out there and it reaches your audience and your friends' audiences and business audiences and fellow inventor audiences. So make sure you have social media pages and you post consistently. And it's okay to start with your friends and family. No one knows that. I don't know who your friends and family are. I just know there's people engaging. And it's got to be more than a like. Write a sentence. Write some comment. I just wrote a comment to Connor how much I love Back to the Future. It's a simple comment, but it's showing that people are engaged. And make sure you have photography. An inventor who is also a young inventor, he's 17 years old, he sent me a drawing and asked me how he could do publicity. And I said, until you have a real product and that product is produced and you take product photography, you're not ready yet. Make sure you're ready. Don't rush it, take your time. But the average journalist doesn't want an image, meaning a drawing. They want to see a product and how that product is out there. And also understand who is your buyer. Who's going to be interested in that product? Who are you targeting? What is the demographic? What is the audience? Are they young children? Are they teenagers? Are they the average adult? Is it a senior citizen? Who is it you're targeting? Is it someone who lives in a city? Is it someone who might live in the country? Is it someone who drives versus someone who uses a bicycle or walks? Know who your audience is. And does the audience have the amount of money to spend on what your product will cost? So make sure you know who your buyer is before you do public relations. Now, public relations, in simplistic terms, it's editorial endorsement. It means someone else is patting you on the back instead of you patting yourself on the back. And editorial coverage can be evergreen. By that, I mean it's not targeted to today. It doesn't matter what day it is that we're talking. Doesn't matter if it's a Thursday or a Tuesday in the summer or in the winter. You want your topic to be general so that it could be used over and over again. Because what's important is the average person reading an article that your product is included in, or listening to a podcast interview with you about your invention, or a TV segment, they're not looking at the date it came out. They're looking at the content. So you can use it over and over and over again. And plan out your year. For instance, believe it or not, I, as a public relations professional, start talking about Christmas and Hanukkah in June. I know, it seems a little crazy, but June 1st, I'm already in that mode of the holiday season because magazines, glossy printed magazines, are working on those issues in advance. August, they're talking about Breast Cancer Awareness Month. In September, we're talking about New Year, New You, and so on. So think forward. Think about, is your invention something for a certain time of the year? Well, you've got to work back. So if you had something for swimsuit beach season, you're going to want to start in November for beach season and going down the shore the following year. So think in advance of what your product is, what your invention is. I keep saying product, but not every single invention is a product. But what your invention is and what time of the year you are planning to announce it and release it so that you're not missing those opportunities. Okay, whoa, what's this, Andrea? There's so much press, so much. But it could be that you're watching the Today Show. And of course, you know, I have here press in the US, and I know we're talking to people globally, but you could have as big as Good Morning America, and you can have something really targeted like Taekwondo Life magazine that reaches people who like that, or New Jersey On Air that reaches people in the state of New Jersey. So remember, there's a lot of press out there to be had. It doesn't all have to be the Wall Street Journal. or Investors Daily. There are so many press opportunities to get your invention and your story, and especially as a youth innovator, you have a story, because you know what? You put your heart in everything that you're doing to create your invention. So remember, there's a lot of press to be had when doing PR. And I'm going to quickly go through these points so that you understand in basic terms, because I'm sure, Eliana, you know what advertising is, right? You probably heard of advertising. Well, guess what, right? You do. And you probably look at a newspaper and you know what an ad is, or on TV, right? Mm-hmm. Well, someone paid for that. In public relations, it's earned. You don't pay for press coverage. You pay for a public relations executive to work with you like me, but you don't pay to be in an article. That's where the difference is. In advertising, it builds exposure because you know, okay, that newspaper has this many readers in their circulation, or a website has this many unique views per month. But public relations is different because it builds trust, because this is real news. It's not fake news, it's a real story. And the media gives you that third-party validation, where in advertising, you're like, I don't know if I believe that, because you know someone paid for it. And in advertising, okay, you run an ad, you have control. You decide on the creative, you could change a word. You don't have any control in the press. The press is going to control the version, and they're going to use public relations. They're going to use language, words. In advertising, it's very visual. Advertising is very expensive. I had an inventor who recently told me that she ran a small ad in a local magazine, and it was about $4,000 or $5,000 for one time for that ad. One time. Public relations, you can get a lot more coverage that you can reuse for your money. And in advertising, you say, buy this, right? But wait, there's more, buy this. In public relations, we're saying, this is important. This is news. So your innovation and what you are doing as global innovators, this is important news. And that's where there's a huge difference between advertising and public relations. You've got to be ready to comment. You've got to be comfortable to answer questions. And it's really important that you learn how to do an interview. And today is a great example of putting yourself in front of a camera, because feeling comfortable in front of a camera and being able to give a good interview is important. And in public relations, we stick with the power of three messages. Write down those 3 messages. Practice them in front of a mirror, or in front of your camera, or in front of your computer. Look at yourself in the mirror or in front of your computer. Practice speaking so you have a comfort level. Listen, no one knows your innovation more than you know it. So you can't say anything wrong, because only you would know that. No one would know if you say one amount of a product versus another amount. No one knows numbers, you do. Don't get sidetracked too much on your personal story. It's great to have a little bit about your personal story, but always bring an interviewer back to your innovation, because that's what you want to sell. And always in any kind of interview, here's an important public relations tip. Make sure you drive the audience back to a website, a retailer, Amazon, a store, a social media page. I had a client of mine the other day who did a television interview, and I went over this with the client. They never said the name of their business in the interview, nor did they drive anyone to a website. And I watched afterwards and I was ready to pull my hair out, because the most important thing is, how can someone find you? That's what's important when you have innovation. In public relations, you want to be easily found so that people can help you with your innovation. And most important, engagement on social media. So I'm not sure how many of you have social media pages or are involved with social media, but make sure you're looking up the press and make sure you tag them. So if they wrote an article about you, when you put it on your social media, tag them, because they like to see that you did for them because they did for you. But most importantly, the time to be in the news is today if you are indeed ready to share your innovation and talk about yourself as an innovator. So I always look at people who say, I'll get to it in 6 months, or I'll get to it in a year. We don't know what's going to be going on in the world in 6 months or a year. So if you have your innovation closer to ready, or going for a GoFundMe page or a Kickstarter campaign, or if you're running your own nonprofit, then the time is today to get in the press. So I'm really glad that I had a chance to give you a brief overview about public relations and how it can help your invention. And I really look forward to answering some of your questions, Elena, about what is public relations. So please let me know what else I can answer to be able to help you and anyone who is tuning in today understand and learn more about public relations.
So if I was interested in public relations, and what would you say to me? Like, would you give me any tips to start with?
I certainly would give you tips to start with. First, I'd want to know what your invention is. And are you ready to talk to others about your invention? I'd also want to get a biography about you. I'd want to learn more about you as an innovator. And in addition to innovating, what other hobbies do you have? Maybe you play soccer, or maybe you do ceramics or do community theater. So it's great to have a well-rounded background to tell a great story. And I would ask you those questions. How did you come up with your innovation? So a good public relations representative is going to take the time to ask the client, and you would be the client, these kind of questions. So we have a good understanding of what it is, who you want to reach, and is the innovation and invention ready yet?
Okay. And what made you want to go into being a public relation? Like, what age did you start wanting to?
I love that question. When I was in junior high school and high school, I was always the publicity chair of the different clubs I was in. So I was making flyers and hanging them up, and I was calling the local newspapers and telling them things happening in the high schools. And when I was a senior in high school, I actually wrote a column called In the High Schools for a local weekly newspaper. And I always loved publicizing everything. And when I went to college, I actually went to college to study to be a broadcast journalist. I thought I was going to be on TV and tell the news and travel the globe. And I went to work for CBS in New York City, the CBS radio division, doing public relations. I thought that would be a great in because I loved it. And I interviewed to be at CBS News. And I got called back for a second interview. And believe it or not, the job was to work nights and weekends. And I would have made no money, but my parents were going to support me. And then I stopped and I said, I love public relations. Why don't I stick with what I love doing? And I decided to stick with public relations because I love telling stories and getting the press coverage. So I knew from a very young age that I always loved this. I might have zigged and zagged a little in getting back to it, but I don't know if you've ever heard the quote, if you love what you do, you've never worked a day in your life, right? I see heads nodding here, and it's true. I love public relations. I love publicity. And I love the fact that I was able to start my own business, Andrea Pass Public Relations, a few years ago.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions?
Andrea, I have a question. What do you think, I don't know, maybe 20 years from now that social media will still be a viable outlet, or do you see an evolution and do you think social media has reached its peak, or where are we right now with those different things, and maybe specifically different kinds of social media, if you want to speak to those?
I think social media is here to stay for the long haul. And what's important is how we use it. For example, Twitter today, it's just horrible. It's everyone bashing everyone else. And so you don't want to be on Twitter to talk about a positive story and to talk about a new product. It's really people just being nasty to each other. But if you look at something like LinkedIn, which of course is very important for business and the business world, if you look at Facebook, that really is reaching an older demographic. So you're not seeing younger people on Facebook as much. You're seeing older people, but those people are the buyers. So you want to be on Facebook. Instagram has grown tremendously. You know, Snapchat had its time. It's not really viable now as far as for products and that kind of thing. But TikTok has grown from only young people to all ages. I was talking to a colleague of mine who said she's doing TikTok advertising for products reaching the grandparent age. So I think social media is here to stay. It's how we choose to use it and when we choose to disconnect, because I think it's really important that we do all learn, no matter what age we are, to disconnect.
Thank you. A question in YouTube. What about innovators in other continents? What suggestions can you give regarding international PR to young innovators, public relations to young innovators?
It's really the same. The same suggestions that I gave here. Get to know your local newspaper. If you have that weekly newspaper that covers your hometown and you're ready to talk, remember, the minute you start talking about your innovation, someone will steal it. So remember that. But if you're ready to talk and you have something, a show and tell, get in touch with your local newspaper. No matter where in the world you live, you have a local newspaper. You have a local TV station. You have maybe people in the neighborhood who do podcasts. So there's so much press around the globe. It's never ending. And keep in mind, today, there are so many, I call them homegrown journalists, people who didn't go to college to study writing or journalism or radio, TV, film. These are people that I decide I wanted to write a blog. I decide I want to start a podcast or a video cast. So there are so many opportunities, no matter where in the globe you are located. All of the tips that I provided today fit for you as well.
Thank you very much for the very good tips, Andrea. Can you talk about your own experience when you opened your company? I bet you also had your strategies implemented into your own company to gain clients. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's really a wonderful question. And it's so funny because I worked for quite a number of boutique public relations firms over the years. And many of my clients and colleagues kept telling me, Andrea, go out on your own. I don't know, I wasn't ready. And then there was an opportunity almost 5 years ago, and it was time. And I had the support of so many people. And when I first got my LLC, within 4 days, I had my first client, someone who I knew. He insisted on buying me my first batch of business cards. And within 2 or 3 weeks, I had a full load of clients that I had to stop. I couldn't take anyone else on. And the excitement of meeting new people and getting press coverage for them and showing them how they can use the press coverage to grow their businesses has been so beneficial. So I never knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And here it was, the opportunity. And what's very interesting is I always was involved with the inventor community. for probably 15 or more years. And the United Inventors Association of America always wanted me to be involved on their board. And whoever owned my companies that I worked for didn't want me to do this. And so I couldn't be on their board. The minute I started Andrea Pass Public Relations, I joined the United Inventors Association of America on their board of directors. I have been on their board of directors now for a number of years. And anyone who is watching today, please go on to uiausa.org and join. It's free. There are wonderful tips for inventors, and the United Inventors Association has seminars you can listen to that have been pre-recorded, tips, information on patents, as well as the UIA, United Inventors Association, has inventor areas at certain trade shows in the US, such as Inspire Home, which used to be called the Houseware Show. They're at the Hardware Show, the PGA Show for golf products. So learn a little bit about it, but I'm thrilled to be involved in the United Inventors Association of America. And that's another thing I was able to do when I started my own company, is to give back to the inventor community. And I was thrilled when I had an opportunity to meet Julie, who was actually awarded one of the United Inventor Association of America Inspire Top 100 People for 2022. And we got to know each other, and she invited me to get to know all of you. So it's great to always meet new people. You just never know who you're going to meet and what it's going to lead to. So I wish everyone who has an idea, an innovation, an invention, go for it. Go for it, because you'll regret not doing it.
Congratulations, Andrea.
Thank you, Andrea, for presenting today.
Thank you, Eliana. I really appreciate it. And you are a wonderful host.